Okay, welcome back to another episode of Travel Talk, and in this episode I'm going to be taking you through a part of my route through Central America. So in this episode I'm going to talk about Panama and Costa Rica. I'm going to give you the places that I stayed, how long kind of to stay in each place, if I would do anything differently, some good apps to use while traveling through Central America, and what I would do differently if I was to go again. So starting off, I flew to Panama on the 23rd of January this year. It was a 15-hour flight. My layover was in Charles de Gaulle, and I landed in Panama quite late. So I landed in Panama City at about 11 o'clock at night, and then I had a taxi organised from the airport to my hotel. So I stayed in a hotel for one night and then moved to a hostel. But one thing differently I would do straight off the bat is I would download Uber. We don't use Uber in Ireland, but it is quite common in the larger cities in Central America, and it works perfectly. Like, it's possibly the safest way to travel as well, using Uber, because taxis can be a little bit dodgy. They can try rip you off just because you're a tourist. Towards Uber, it's like a set price, and you can follow the ride. It's perfect basically. We have like free now, but yeah, Uber for Central America works perfectly in the bigger cities. So the taxi actually cost me like $30 when an Uber would have cost me I think something like 15. So I would do that straight off the bat. Get them to bring you straight to your hotel, hostel, wherever you're staying for your first few nights or your first night. It's nice not have to get a taxi or get a bus, especially after such a long flight. And yeah, it worked perfectly from then on. Uber did. So yeah, got to my hotel, spent one night there, just chilled out, splashed around in the pool for a bit, and made my way to my hostel the next morning. If I was booking another hostel in Panama City, I would stay in the old town, Casco Viejo. It's beautiful, that little town. It's just a little section of Panama City itself. Panama City is massive. It is a huge, sprawling metropolitan area. I have never been to Miami, but apparently it's similar sort of layout to Miami and a similar sort of feel. Sorry. But it was a really good place to start because it has really good infrastructure. There's a metro system there. It's not that easy to walk is the only thing. You do have to get like taxis and stuff like that. You can walk, but it's quite annoying. There's just no footpaths, massive high-rise buildings, and that's about it really. The old town is really, really nice though. It's full of these old colonial buildings, nice little shops. It's cheap too. Food there is good. As good as it gets in Panama. They kind of, if you're going on a budget, they don't stray too far from empanadas. They are really good, but you get quite full of empanadas after 5-6 days of just eating them. So yeah, flew into Panama City. It was a really nice place to start. It kind of settled me into Central America, if you get me. It's quite daunting flying over. You're flying to another side of the world, and yeah, it's not easy. If you've never done it before. I had never spent more than like 2 weeks, 16 days away from home, so it was quite a big change for me. So yeah, I started in Panama City. I didn't go to the San Blas Islands. It's quite expensive to do like 2-day trips there. Well, especially from the hostel I was staying in, they offered like a tour. Probably is cheaper if you go at it yourself. If I fly into Panama City next, I will be working my way south, so hopefully I'll stop off in San Blas Islands for that before going to Colombia. That would ideally be the plan, because I would really, really like to see them. They're meant to be absolutely insane. But yeah, Panama City, really nice place to start. It's quite safe at night. I had no issues at all. Just be aware of your surroundings. You do have to keep your guard up in big cities that side of the world, but that's just, it's just the way it is, I suppose. I wouldn't go wandering around Dublin at 2 in the morning, so I'm not going to go wandering around Panama City at 2 in the morning, just get your Uber to where you're going. Get your Uber home. Don't be messing around in the streets or anything like that. It's just not worth it, really. After Panama City, there is a few different stops you can make, and there are really, really nice places down by the coast. There's Santa Catalina. That's a really, really popular destination, especially if you want to surf. It's meant to be a small enough little town, but just really, really fun to go to. Really kind of relaxed, chilled out kind of vibes, if you get me. I skipped it now. Personally, I went to a little town called David. Really small, not a whole lot of tourism. The town itself is quite, it's quiet, I guess. Quite quiet. Just a small little square. You can go out and take a day trip to the beach. That's what I did. I just got the local bus out to the beach. It was really, really nice, really, really handy. I actually got dropped off in this bus stop and I didn't really know where I was going. So this older gentleman was like, "Do you want to get in a taxi with me?" And I can tell him where you want to go when I get out. They speak Spanish, but it's very, very difficult to understand. They speak pretty quick in Panama. So if you are traveling to Panama, just be aware of that. Their sentences are basically like squashed and they come out really, really fast, as if they're almost like one word. That is not the case for the majority of Central America. It is quite easy to understand and they don't use too many tenses. They kind of just use like the simple past, future, present. They don't stray too far. They don't use like, hey, I can't even remember it, hey hicho or hey hecho or something like that. They use like I am going, I went, and I am. Like it's really simple throughout Central America. It's not like Spain Spanish, if you get me. So yeah, after Panama City, made my way to David, stayed in a hostel there. I cannot remember the name of the hostel, but I stayed there for 3 nights, which was plenty. 2 nights probably would have been enough, but I had booked my following hostel in advance, so 3 nights was fine. I got to go to the beach one day and then tipped into the town for the other 2 days. Really nice little town. Just went, got some food, took a stroll around the markets. Sundays are really good days out there because everyone's off and you just have people wandering around going about their business, and it's nice even just to sit in the coffee shops and like watch the world go by. It's a really, really nice thing to do. Just enjoy the passing of time, I guess. And then after David, or even so, a lot of people don't go to David, they go to Boquete. It's another town a little bit further towards Bocas del Toro, but they are 2 really good halfway points between Panama City and Bocas. And you can also go, which I went to, is the Lost and Found hostel. So that's up in the jungle. Really, really cool hostel. I think to this day it's still one of the coolest hostels I was in. You get dropped off on the road, you're already like hundreds of feet above sea level. You're looking out at the like sprawling jungle canopy. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then you climb up, it's a hike to the hostel basically. And you hike up and you're just looking out over the Panamanian jungle. It's absolutely insane. And if that's not good enough for you, you can go on hikes where it brings you even further up into the jungle and you get to look out over the up over the tree line. Really, really cool place. You can't hike 2 hours before sundown because it's just not safe. Like if you get lost out there while it's dark, unless you know what you're doing, I reckon you could end up in a bit of bother pretty quickly. I wouldn't be confident in myself going out there at night, so I just went for one hike up to this viewpoint, looked out over it. It was absolutely beautiful. I only spent 2 nights there, but yeah, amazing place. You can also go down to the smaller little town. I can't remember the name of it, but if you go there, you get the recommendations. People are not shy of information when you arrive in hostels. Then there's the little canyon in that town is really, really cool. We went there on a Sunday actually when there was nothing going on, and by we I mean myself and a lot of other people in the hostel. I was travelling on my own, So we went on a Sunday, and there's just people out like cooking a barbecue, different things like that. It's really, really nice music playing, and I not once felt like my bags were going to be taken. Nobody was like trying to intimidate you. It was the complete opposite. Like, people were asking you, where are you from, what are you doing, do you like Panama, different things like that. Really, really nice people in that country. A solid place to start because they are so friendly. And then made my way up towards Bocas del Toro, which is like a cluster of islands right by the Costa Rican border. So it's really easy to get from those into Costa Rica. And in my experience, that is the way most people travel, up from Panama, up through the country, making their stop-offs, and finish in Bocas del Toro, which is exactly what I did. And for Bocas and for the Lost and Found hostel, I would recommend booking slightly in advance if you know the dates you're going to be there, because they fill up really quick, and if you get stuck in private rooms or in like a hotel, say in Bocas, you will fork out a good bit of money for those. So just save yourself a bit of money if you know the dates that you're going to be there. Book in advance. If not, you could always just ask if they have a hammock. For myself and the budget I was going for, I was looking between like €13 a night. It differed up and down depending on the country, but in Panama, about 13 a night. That was kind of the standard. Bocas leaning more towards like 15, 16, but that is expected because it is a touristy location. Now, as far as the town of Bocas itself, I was not overly fond of it. It's very touristy. There's none of the typical like colonialism, or not colonialism, like the colonial sort of architecture that you would expect in that side of the world. It is purely for the tourism, because they have such a good like surf scene and diving scene there. It is very cheap to get your paddy course there. I debated doing it there and then doing my advanced in Honduras, but I just ended up leaving it. I said, I'm early into the trip, I'm not going to go spending the $350 or $400 that it was to do the course. So I left it for the time being, and I did it later on up in Honduras, which we will get to. But if you're interested in surfing, it's meant to be a savage spot. The surf is quite tough there from what I was told, so they recommended me as a beginner not to go surf there. I think they're actually like reef breaks, so you're actually out in the sea. I could be wrong, but from what I heard, you're actually like out quite a bit out in the sea surfing. So my recommendations for Bocas del Toro would be Isla Zapatia and Starfish Beach. Starfish Beach is on the main island, I guess. So you get dropped to like a main island, and then if your hostel is on Bastimentos is another island that's quite popular, you have to get a second boat across. And then Isla Zapatia has one family on it. Myself and two Belgian girls that I met over there, we took quite a late boat over, so we took it just by ourselves. And the young lad actually came out to us, and his Spanish was a lot slower and a lot softer, so he was quite easy to understand, and I was able to have a chat with him. And he was explaining to me that they're the only family that lived there. Him, his siblings, and his mom and dad, they own a boat, and that's how he gets to school and back. It's how they get to the shop and back. Basically, everybody that lives there owns a boat, or not that lives like on that island, but everybody that lives in Bocas has boats, because that is their mode of transport between island to island. They're not dependent on other people. For yourselves, when you go there, water taxis are really, really handy on nights out. So there's actually really good nightlife there. The Selena hostel on the main town is really, really good, and I think it's called like Aqua Lounge or something like that. It's on Bastimentos, and that's quite good as well. So we went out like 2 nights when we were there. I spent a week there, so for somebody who didn't like the town, that was a long time. But just going to those beaches was it was everything I could have asked for from that area. Like, I had very little expectations. Like, I didn't know what to expect. it was like paradise, lads. It was unbelievable. The water is like crystal clear. The beaches are kept like perfect. The only thing you're gonna find are like coconut shells. Yeah, so I went one day on my own, and that's when I met the two Belgian girls, and then we spent like that evening and the next day together. Really, really good time with them. And then later on in the week, there was a load of people in my hostel, and a lot of the times the people in your hostel can like make and break your experience, because if you have like really fun people in your hostel, you could have like such good crack. It was so good. And two of the girls, Millie and Nettie, that I ended up spending like a month with in Guatemala later on the trip, I actually met for the first time in Bocas del Toro. And we went to like, there was loads of, there was like 7 of us went to the beach one day. So good. We found this like little cove, we had it all to ourselves. Yeah, really, really good fun. And just before I go any further, these are my experiences from my trip. I would highly encourage everyone to go to these countries and form your own opinions. I think that's like so crucial when it comes to like travel and like people. Like, don't just take other people's opinions for like gospel and things like that. Go out and discover this for yourself. My experience somewhere might be really, really poor based on like an event that happens, or just like I was saying, like there was nobody there to like have fun with, and I couldn't make my own fun. But you could go and you could have the time of your life. I'll get on to like San Jose now soon, but yeah, like there I didn't really have a good time, but there was one girl there that was back for like the 3rd time because she has so much fun. She like made friends, and they live in the city, and they go out and they have such good crack. So yeah, really, really important that you keep in mind, like, these are my experiences, just for this video and videos to follow, because I will be talking through my entire route. That, yeah, they're my opinions, so don't be going at me for my opinion on different places. But yeah, Panama, unbelievable country. Just keep in mind that they speak really fast and they can be hard to understand, but it's not going to be like that for the rest of the Central American countries. The food isn't that exciting, especially if you're on a budget like I was. You're going to be eating empanadas, beans, rice, things like that. You're going to be making your own cereal in the hostels, and you can do it relatively cheap if you book in advance for really popular places. So the likes of Santa Catalina and Bocas del Toro, really, really popular places. So just book in advance if you know you're going to be there. If not, you can rock up and just like ask for a hammock, I suppose. Just be like, oh, can I pitch a hammock? It's something you can do. I didn't do it, but it is an option. And yeah, like Panama is brilliant. Like, it has jungles, beaches, yeah, just lacking, I guess, in the food scene. Now maybe I missed really good food. I could have, but for me it was just like empanadas most days. I was there for like 2.5 weeks through Panama, and it was empanadas most days for lunch and dinner. My own choice, my own doing. But yeah, would highly recommend that as like a start point if you're planning on doing Central America, especially at the time of year I went. So I went in January, and obviously the sun was coming up towards the northern hemisphere, so my thought process was I can follow the sun up, you know. That was my thought process behind it. But yeah, from Bocas del Toro I made my way to Puerto Viejo, and I did that by taking a shuttle. So I didn't take many shuttles in my trip. They are really, really common. They're, if you don't know, shuttle companies basically organise buses between popular backpacking destinations to save you going on public transport. Now, the upside to them is you get places a lot quicker, often, and you get dropped right to the door of your accommodation. The downside is they are quite expensive, and you're just in a bus with a load of backpackers. Like, you're not getting to see how the locals live and how they get around day to day. which mightn't seem like a big thing, but those chicken buses are so funny. You be sitting on people and they literally have chickens on their laps, or it's just mad stuff. People come on and they like sell you stuff and things like that, because you don't get that experience when you're on a shuttle. But the shuttle that I did take from Bocas to Puerto Viejo, I would recommend doing it. It cost me, I already had my return ticket from the mainland to the islands, so that was obviously I covered the cost of that myself earlier on in the trip, and then the bus from the main town all the way up to Puerto Viejo to my hostel door was like $15. So very, very worth it in my opinion. And yeah, I would recommend taking that shuttle if it's on offer there. Sorry, my GoPro got too hot there, so it just like shut itself off. Left it for a few minutes, and I think I was talking about getting to Costa Rica. So I immediately realized, especially even looking on Hostel World, that the price of accommodation in Costa Rica was way more expensive than Panama. And I was aware of this before going out, that Costa Rica and Panama are the two most expensive countries. And as well as being able to follow the sun up towards the northern hemisphere, if you get me, I knew that getting the more expensive countries out of the way early would be more ideal, if you get me, rather than leaving them to the end when my budget was a bit tighter and trying to like scrimp and scrape at that time of the trip. I know I spent the same amount of money, but just in your head it's nicer just to get the more expensive places out of the way. So not necessarily out of the way, but you have them, you have traveled through them, you've done what you want to do, and then you have what's left in front of you and your remaining funds are there as well. So it is just peace of mind, if you get me, that you have the more expensive stuff done out of the way. Nothing major is going to come up that's going to cost you a whole lot. I don't know if that makes sense, but in my head it does, if you get me. So yeah, traveling to Costa Rica, took the shuttle and got dropped right to my hostel. That is like the main perk of that, getting a shuttle. You get dropped right to where you want to go. So I got dropped to a hostel called Playa 506, and I spent 2 nights there. So the hostel was a little bit outside the town. It was a little bit annoying to get in and out. You can rent bikes. If I was staying longer, I would have rented a bicycle. Whenever, if I was staying for a week, I would have rented a bicycle for a week. It would have been really cool to be able to cycle in and out, tip around. If you go even beyond the city or beyond the town more, there's really cool places like up in kind of the mountains and things like that. There's really cool places to go. Nice hikes as well. The town was very similar to Bocas town, as in not a whole lot of culture and things like that, but however there was a much more Caribbean vibe there, if you get me. Lots of like Jamaican flags and boys with the Jamaican beanies cooking jerk chicken, which was phenomenal. I got it like off a grill. It was really, really good. So that is a perk of going to Puerto Viejo. The surf there, I remember I got to my hostel, it was right on the beach, absolutely beautiful. Walked down onto the beach, down to the shoreline, saw the waves, and I was like, there was no fear of me surfing here. The surf was ridiculous, like head height waves barreling like way beyond my beginner level of surfing. It was out of the question, if you get me. I did meet a lad who surfed there for not this first time, but he was still a beginner. He said it was really, really tough, but it was good to learn, because if you learn in a tough environment, you get used to it a lot quicker. But yeah, I just opted not to do it. Plus the lessons were very expensive, and I just opted not to do it. So yeah, I then had the choice to either continue up the coast, which is quite hard to do, and it's quite expensive to get up the coast without going inland first, or going inland and just going straight for San Jose, the capital. So up the coast you have Cahuita, I believe it's called, and you have Tortuga, two very, very nice places. The girls, Millie and Nettie, that I had met in Panama, actually ended up doing those 2 places, and they said it was like unbelievable. Tortuga, it's kind of in the name, like turtle, like there's just turtles everywhere, especially we're kind of there during hatching season, so there was just thousands of turtles all hatching all at once, and heading out to sea is meant to be unbelievable. But I myself opted to go in towards the centre of the country, right into San Jose, and that was probably my worst experience on the trip. I spent 2 nights there, and even walking from the bus stop to my hostel, I was walking through the city. I didn't feel particularly safe. Like, I didn't feel in danger or anything. There was just this, like, it felt like everyone was staring at you and people were like eyeing you up and things like this. Lots of homelessness, graffiti everywhere. Now, obviously, graffiti doesn't necessarily mean danger or anything, but it just wasn't a nice place. Having said that, I met a girl in my hostel, and she was back in San Jose for like the third or fourth time. She had met people there, they lived there, and she was like going on nights out. She said she was having great fun walking home at night. She never had any issues. But personally, even walking to the shops, I didn't really like the feeling that I got from the area. As well as that, I'm not much of a city person. I'm not hugely into museums, although I did sort of take to them later on. Mexico, there was a really nice museum, and as well as that, when I was in Valencia there recently, we went to the huge museum in Valencia City, and that was really, really cool. So maybe if I was to go back again, I'd give San Jose a second chance, look into it a bit more, find the places to go and not to go, and yeah, give it a proper go. But like I said, go yourself and form your own opinions on these places, because obviously I had a bad experience. The girl in the hostel obviously had a very good experience the first time if she continued to go back. And yeah, it differs for each person, and also your interests kind of dictate where you're going to go. I much prefer like beaches and like nature and stuff like that, and like the countryside, whereas other people prefer cities. It's just personal preference, completely down to you. But yeah, San Jose, not really, not my cup of tea, if you get me. After San Jose, I headed for the coast. So there's a few different places up along the coast in Costa Rica that are really, really popular. I'll get a few of them for you here now. Santa Teresa is a really, really popular one. And again, same with Bocas del Toro. If you know when you're going to be there, book in advance, because I was looking at hostels. All the dorm rooms were booked up. So it was only private rooms, and they were like 35, 40 a night. Not what I was prepared to spend. As well as that, you have Playa Hermosa, is also meant to be a really nice place, and I settled for basically the cheapest accommodation I could find, which was in Playa del Coco, which was really, really close to Playa Hermosa. It's up in the northern west corner of Costa Rica. So I'd come from southeast all the way up like diagonally through the country. Stopped off in San Jose and then up to Playa del Coco. But yeah, I had like a really good time there. Just the cost of accommodation was too expensive for me to stay any longer than 2 nights. Unfortunately, the sunsets on that Pacific coast are absolutely insane. They're beautiful, and if you do get a chance to book your accommodation early, or else get lucky and find accommodation that's cheap, hopefully with obviously tourism coming back into the country, obviously because of the pandemic it was quite low at the time, a lot of places closed, so now hostels can kind of charge what they like, and they know people are going to pay for it because they're still very, very sought after locations. So yeah, hopefully the more it opens up, the more hostels that open back up, the cheaper the price gets. You also have Tamarindo, another very, very popular place along that Pacific coast of Costa Rica. More inland, you have La Fortuna and Monteverde. My room must be absolutely roasting, or else the sun coming in is really affecting this because it overheat again. But the final stop in Costa Rica was Liberia, which is just a small little town. It's absolutely ideal for crossing the border into Nicaragua. It's maybe 45 minutes, an hour away from the border. It's absolutely perfect. I went there to get my my test, because Nicaragua was the only country that required a negative test before entering, so I was able to go there and get that. As well as that, I went to my very first soda. A soda is basically an open air restaurant. They are generally family run, so everybody works there is all family. And yeah, it was a really nice little small town and a nice way to finish off a very short stay in Costa Rica, unfortunately. And yeah, to round up Costa Rica, there is amazing places I didn't visit, the likes of La Fortuna, Monteverde, down by the coast there, Playa Hermosa, meant to be really good for surfing. Incredible sunsets there, they're absolutely amazing. Nearly every night is an amazing sunset. The surf there, if you are a big surfer, is very, very good as well. Another thing I didn't really get to take advantage of because I am just a pure beginner. I've been out maybe a handful of times, and yeah, unfortunately that's just the way it was for me. There are really cheap flights to Costa Rica, into San Jose, and then from my experience I would say get out of San Jose as quickly as possible. But make up your own mind, maybe do stay there, go see the museums, different things like that. The downsides to Costa Rica is that it is very expensive, especially there's a lot of touristy parts that, yeah, I just couldn't afford to stay any longer in. Hopefully next time I will have a bit of a bigger budget and I get to properly spend a bit of time there and explore those areas. It is difficult to travel up and down the coasts. A lot of the times you have to go back inland and then come back out. So Liberia was a good one if you're trying to get up and down that sort of northern west coast, is like in and out from Liberia. On the east, I'm not 100% sure the best way to get up and down. You do have to come inland a little bit. It is quite difficult to get buses from Playa or from Puerto Viejo up to Cahuita and then onto Tortuga, but it is doable. It just takes a little bit longer. And yeah, another con for myself was the capital city, San Jose. Petty theft is quite common there, and again, just being a tourist, especially myself with the camera, you do have a little bit of a target on your back and people automatically pick you out of a crowd, unfortunately. So yeah, to sum up my beginning start to my backpacking adventure, Panama City, really cool place, a very nice place to start because of that infrastructure, kind of eases you into the whole being on the other side of the world. And then Costa Rica, very expensive, but if you do have the budget, it can be a very fun place to be. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Travel Talks, and in the next episode I will talk about Nicaragua and then El Salvador. But yeah, hope to catch you in the next one, and until then, take care and cheers.